Check, check, check.
Yo.
Hear yourself?
I can hear myself.
So, get us rolling. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome into this week's edition of the WTOC First Alert Weather Podcast, talking a little bit different kind of weather today, fishing and weather. And I've got Captain Jimmy Lee Armel here with us today. He is a local, knows the waters off the coast and inland very well. Jimmy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Andrew. How are you, brother?
Doing good. You know, it's one of the coldest days we've had all year. This is going to go down as a top 5 cold day of 2023. I know we're bundled up, but how does it affect fishing when you have one of those first really true fall cold fronts?
So it really starts getting things fired up. There's a drop in the temperature. Things are moving. Migrations are happening. Fish are wanting to fatten up for the winter, the ones that stay resident. So it's basically a feeding frenzy. So starting off on the inshore right now, especially if you're going out with live bait, you can pretty much close your eyes, spin in a circle, throw a popping cork with a shrimp on it, and you're going to catch a redfish.
Okay.
Trout bite's been a little bit slower, but still good. But those reds right now, there's really nothing you can do wrong. Artificial, live, I mean, just go out there and have a blast at it.
So it's a little different than, say, for deer hunters that, you know, whenever it gets cold, sometimes deer will bed down, kind of just hang out and chill for a little bit, maybe wait for the daytime for it to warm up. But fish, they're just like looking for energy.
Yeah, now if there is a sudden drop in the actual water temperature, you know, that will give them, you know, what we refer to as lockjaw. You know, they won't want to eat because, you know, you really get into my take on it is you get into calorie intake, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about a profit. You want to profit calories. So it's, you know, I always equate it to if you have 2 steak buffets to choose from and the same quality steak,
Mm-hmm.
are you going to go to the one where you got to walk 200 feet to the bar to get a steak, or are you going to go to the one where you have to walk 25 feet?
Yeah.
We're going to go to the 25 feet one,
Sure.
right? Common sense. So it's kind of the same thing. And then it's, you know, if the water gets too hot, it's like in a hot tub. You don't want to eat a cheeseburger when you're in a hot tub, right?
That's true.
And if you're out in the freezing cold and you're actually in the cold before you come in, you're not going to want to stand out there and eat. You're concentrating on being warm, you know, moving around, just hunkering down, just stand as warm as you can.
Right.
So those extremes are kind of like us. In extreme situations, you're not going to want to eat, but just those slow drops, and then, like I said, the air temperature when it drops, it's game on.
Yeah, so it's a path of least resistance, huh?
Yes.
And you know, some science behind it. Obviously, water molecules take more energy to change a degree. So that's why on humid days, we don't fluctuate our lows and highs that much. But you take that and you put it into water, we might have, you know, a huge cold front where we drop 20, 30 degrees in 24 hours, but the water itself is not going to do that. It's more of a gradual process because it takes more energy to do that. So less jumps there. But do you see that top water might be better for that because the top of the water could have a bigger change quicker versus, you know, going down 40 or 50 feet where it's a little bit more consistent?
Yes, and it's on the inshore side of things. What we'll do is as it gets colder, you know, I like going after bigger trout as it gets colder. So what we'll do is you'll find like a bend in a creek, and a lot of time those bends will have like deep holes. So you'll find these deep holes and you'll work the bottom. And if you're doing an artificial or live, you just work it slow. When you think you're going too slow, go a little slower.
There you go. Good advice there. So what has the bite been like this fall? I know we're, you know, getting to that transition point where coming up right before Christmas, we go into winter officially, but for this fall specifically, has it been good for reds, cobias? What's out there right now?
Well, late summer into early fall, that cobia bite was just, I mean, it was ridiculous. I was blessed enough to stumble upon some, and they've had the same pattern in the late summer into the fall. This was the 3rd year in a row. So it was nearly like clockwork the last 3 years. It was like, I know I can go here, you know, in these conditions, and I'm going to catch at least one keeper cobia or just have a fair shot. You know, you'll catch 5 or 6 throwbacks,
Yeah.
But you have a fair shot. Then you go to another place, and all different water depths. I mean, I was catching them from 45 feet to about 90 to 100 feet. So it was a really good bite. The bottom bite was really good. The grouper, obviously the snapper, they're they always eat.
They're always there.
Yeah, a lot of them. The grouper bite was really, really good. Actually, one of my last times out, we were dragging the lip divers trying to find a kingfish, but the snapper and grouper were so fired up in 75 feet of water. That's what we were catching trolling.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were coming. We caught a snapper. We were in. It was only, the plug was 10 feet below the surface. So this fish came up over 50 feet off the bottom, which is not a very natural thing for a bottom fish. I mean, he just came up and just smashed the plug.
So they were ready to go.
Oh yeah. They've been very, very, very fired up. And as far as like the trolling bite goes, you know, there was a big kingfish tournament out of Hilton Head, 80,000 to win, and a local team won that. Another veteran, actually,
Okay, cool.
Nick of Big Fish Charters, they teamed up with, I don't remember the guy's name. It's like Team Kryptonite or something. I met him, real cool dude. But that was really neat. Now I know they cover a lot of water. I'm not sure which waters they caught him in, but they caught a giant. I think it was a 46-pound kingfish.
Wow.
Complete giant. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually with those lip plugs too, like you're going for barracudas or kingfish, you're not expecting a grouper or a snapper.
No, that's something like, they'll do that around the Keys. They'll troll these little plugs for snapper and grouper on the patch reefs. But they're closer to the bottom and you're much shallower. It's a different ballgame. When we're doing it, heck no, we are not expecting that at all.
Yeah, because you got a lot more water to deal with here, vertically speaking.
Yeah. Our grouper aren't in 10, 15 feet of water like they have them in the South.
No, they're just sitting there in their bath water down there, just living it up. That's where grouper go to retire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the dream. So this time of the year, typically too, because we've gone fishing a few times, it seems like this is, you're usually busy in the summer. So when it slows down, we get some time to hang out and go fishing. We are typically going for a couple things, either kingfish or 2 years ago, we got into some nice barracuda. Is that still the norm?
Yeah, if you go out around the towers and stuff, and I don't think you're talking about our topwater day.
That was something.
Yeah, we actually, there's a couple of shorts and maybe a full video, I think, on YouTube on the American Fishing Charters page that shows that day we were out. But yeah, man, you go out around those towers right now, I mean, you got to see it firsthand. You start throwing a topwater around, you're going to get a barracuda, an amberjack. You still might get a cobia. You get kingfish. We've caught kingfish doing it. You just don't know what you're going to catch with it. But those cuda, as you got to see, put on a show. And then on those little trout rods, you can't beat it.
It makes it more fun. It's the trout rods are a little more lightweight, I guess.
Yeah.
So when you get a bigger fish on there, it makes for a tougher feeling fight.
Oh, without a doubt.
So much fun.
And if you remember, there'd be a school of fish behind them chasing the topwater, fighting over it. I mean, it's a really cool thing to watch. It can wear you out throwing a plug all day. But especially if if you're an experienced angler and you got some friends on the boat, it's a very, very visual fish bite. You can take people out there and, God forbid you don't catch a fish, but if you can just get them chasing that lure, I mean, it's just insane just to watch. I mean, I say it all the time. My favorite thing about fishing, I think, is watching the fish eat. Yeah. Like when you can watch a fish just crush a bait, whether it's a live bait, a plug. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, I'm getting a little fired up.
Getting all excited. Well, and some of these topwaters too. We're talking about you could throw a bass topwater bait out there, and it would probably even go that far to chase that, which is crazy. You don't have to even go toward these fancier saltwater baits.
I'm glad you just said that. So, and I get these things. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
I just remembered this. Berkeley makes a thing called a chopper. So, there's a walk the dog technique you use, right? So you're like reeling and popping and reeling and popping. And if you're not as experienced, like I said, it can get tiring and it can be a pain. It can be frustrating. These things, it's a Berkeley chopper. You can get them at Palmetto State Armory here in Savannah. You throw it out there and you just reel it. You just reel it in and it works itself. Oh, it just creates this splash and these clapping, and I mean the fish just smash it. So you just throw it out, reel it in. You just control the speed so you're not, yanking with your right hand, trying to pat your head and rub your tummy type
right.
thing.
But also, if you're going to be doing that for an extended period of time, it saves some energy.
Oh, it saves energy. It's just like we were talking about the fish, the calorie intake and outtake. And then, if you're like me, I'm young, but my body's got high miles. I'm a late model high miles. From my days in Ranger Battalion. So it's like anything I can do to save the shoulder a little bit, we do.
Yeah, so if you can get a bait that'll do the work for you, might as well if it's not going to affect the bite. So that's crazy. And it's kind of a haul to get out to that area specifically. If you're going to go all the way to the towers, there's an old, what is it, a Navy radio tower?
Yeah, I think it acted as a communication repeater before SATCOMs. I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, it was definitely a Navy tower. But I think, like I said, I think it was a repeater to talk from land to the ships.
Yeah, and that area is pretty cool too because we don't have any direction in the podcast today. We're just swapping stories. But you get out that far, and it's an area where you can also see planes doing some of their training, right? So what have you seen out there?
Oh man, we've had a couple. This is assumption. I think they go out there to do the training dogfighting thing. And you'll be out there, and it's funny. We had a boat full of guys one day, of all combat vets, all Rangers, all. I think the lowest amount of deployments on the boat was 5.
Experienced dudes. Yeah,
that have all been in some gunfights. And one of them, we didn't see the plane or hear it, and it broke the sound barriers. We're all like kind of ducking for a second, and then start laughing. They were like, "What was that?" I said, "Oh, breaking the sound barrier."
America.
And America.
That's
dude.
What it was.
It was America, but it was really cool because then they did this low flying cross pattern. And when I say low, they were still pretty high. But for us, I mean, you could see the pilot.
Yeah.
And they crossed each other, banking real hard. It was really cool. We've seen the 160th on our way in before, in the Chinooks, giving us a low fly and a pass. We got that shot on YouTube. That was actually, I think that was on Veterans Day. Actually, they did that. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
You get some crazy stuff out there. We've seen some weird things too. No mer people, but we have seen just hammerheads just chilling. We've seen the man of war, the sea turtles. All these things that it's like if you're gonna go to a beach shop on Tybee and it's printed on a T-shirt, we've seen it.
Yeah,
we've seen it out there.
Yes, it's pretty cool. I like that. I like that comparison. Yeah, if you've seen it on a beach shirt or out on Tybee, we've seen it. That's for sure.
It's crazy. I mean, and then what else have we seen? You see like a jellyfish. You don't see a ton of rays out there. I think they kind of are migratory, but every now and then.
Yes, I've been coming in before and seen a school of 500 or so rays, if I had to guess, and it looks really cool. They're just all top of the water. And then we have those. So something else we have here is I don't know if you've seen this yet, the giant eagle rays.
I've not seen one of those in person.
These are like 200 some pounds, and they're spotted. I think it's called a spotted eagle ray, if I remember right. They are absolutely beautiful, and they jump out of the water.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'll knock you unconscious.
We had one back when I had the little boat, the Skeeter, the bay boat.
The bay boat that you would take well offshore.
About 60 miles. Yeah. Don't recommend that.
Don't recommend that.
Let's not do that, folks. Don't do that. But we'd be on the 22, and we hooked one time an eagle ray. It was on one of the little 3-hour shark trips just right off the beach. And this thing was pull and drag. We're fighting. He's reeling, and then all of a sudden he kind of was coming toward the boat. And this thing, I mean, he jumped out of the water maybe 5 feet from the boat. I mean, when he landed, it splashed everyone.
Yeah.
And we were like, that was awesome. And then I was sitting there, I was like, man, that could have been really, really bad.
Yeah, you don't have control over everything. I think we like having control over certain things. We're not control freaks, but we want to manage a situation.
Yeah.
You can't manage that.
No. I mean, you start dealing with wild animals that are bigger than you. I mean, that's a different ball game.
There's some respect there. I remember one of the episodes of River Monsters. I think Jeremy Wade was out. Who knows where he was? He's been everywhere. But he was trying to reel one in. And I mean, they're so flat. If you're on top of it, it's like pulling out a plug from the ocean. Like it's so hard to get him up. And I'm pretty sure he like snapped a tendon in his arm or something crazy.
I remember that. I think it was his bicep, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it tore his bicep or something crazy. Like you don't want to mess around with those. But Jimmy, we're talking about animals bigger than us and the respect that's there. You obviously have a passion for the white sharks. That's been something that you say that your eyes light up. But it's not about just they're predators, they're amazing, they're cool, kids like them, they're Shark Week for a reason. But this is something that you kind of turned into a passion that is also helpful for the environment in getting to tag your first one. And I remember when I got that call when you told me you did that, I was out of town, and I was like, Jimmy knows I'm out of town. what's he calling about? And you're like, man, I got the first one in. And you just got that data back too, not that long ago.
Yeah, we got it back this summer. It was about a 7 or so foot white shark, male. We named it Chris Wright, a buddy of mine that was killed in action in Afghanistan in August of 2010. So that was really special. It was awesome. We tagged it out at the one of the reefs in about 60 foot of water. We got the tag in January 8th, and it popped around July 8th. They have an internal timer. Our tags do not stay on the animal forever. It's very important to us. So some of these tags, you can't get them off the animal, and it can actually eventually kill them.
These are like humane research tags.
Very much humane. I mean, the thing is, it fits in the palm of my hand, and as you know, I do not have normal size hands. I have tiny hands, so it fits in there, and it goes basically a broadhead. It goes into the skin, penetrates, anchors. Then there's a tether to the tag itself. So after the timer goes off, the internal timer, it sends like basically a little electric shock down the tether, causing corrosion, and then it breaks free, comes to the surface, transmits for 48, 72 hours, something like that, somewhere in that range, up to the satellite of Gray's Fish Tag Research, which is Gray's Taxidermies, the fish mount place out of Lauderdale. That's their nonprofit that's all about conservation.
Right.
So it records everywhere that shark swam, not just point to point where it surfaced, every turn it made. It records the water depth it traveled in and the water temperature it was in. And it actually, ours actually popped off the coast of Massachusetts. So in 6 months, it went from Savannah, Georgia up to, I believe it was Cape Cod.
Yes, for those not following along, these white sharks typically are off our coast a little bit more frequently in the wintertime. Right, so you said you did that in January.
Yep.
And then it popped in the summertime, so they go back up to where that cooler water is. Are they trying to stay in a certain temperature range, or is that the stuff that we're trying to figure out?
It's the stuff we're trying to figure out. I mean, you'll see them tagged and pop in videos. More and more people are on the water, right? COVID, made that happen. So you're seeing more. I'm hearing more out of Florida, and the water doesn't get that cold down there.
That's true.
I've heard about them and, seen tags pinging in South Florida in the summertime. But yes, for the most part, and I think it's a food migration. They've started going, they've always gone up north, but, that seal population came back up in the Northeast. I forget exactly where. Just watched something on that about 2 months ago. And, that's what's got them up there. Down here, they always said it was the right whales. There's not a whole lot of right whales left.
Yeah, they're protected or endangered. So.
Yeah, so we don't know where they breed, give birth, etc. So are they here for that? As far as the food source goes, I don't know, man. We got a lot of big old redfish and big old red snappers. So.
Yeah, if I was a shark, I'd want to eat those. I'm a human and I want to eat them.
I know, right? You got a big slow swimming fish that swims in schools, like bull redfish, out on the reefs. So if I was, goes into calories in, calories out, right? Now a couple whips of that tail, you would think, they could crush one or two or injure one or two and eat them at their leisure.
So you got that one in, and we're getting into that season again. What are your plans going into this white shark time frame? Because it's not a season, but it's just like a time that they're, more commonly off our coast.
Yeah, so we're getting the boat back from Custom Marine in Statesboro here this week. They just getting her yearly tune-up facelift, and so we're gonna have the Sportsman back out there. The shark tags, Greg of Starbright Cleaning Solutions, they're the ones that purchase the tags for us. We surely can't afford it being a nonprofit. The tags are about $6,000 a pop. It's an expensive game. So we have 2 listed this year. I should have them by the end of this week. So good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, next week we're going to be out there chasing them. It's game time for us.
Yeah. Well, so are we hoping that we obviously get another tag in there, you guys in the nonprofit, and then that research will come back, 6 months later, all that data, and then we can compare and contrast to what happened to the first one that you got.
Yes, and then I'm not sure if we're going to do it on the third one or the ones we get after that. But then we're going to start. The more we get out, we're going to extend the timers. So I think we can go up to like 24 months. So I think we're going to do maybe another 6 month or two, and then go to 12. And hopefully generate some interest in this. It's a beautiful thing. We're helping collect data on these white sharks, which will help save them, which is important. They're a very important part of our ecosystem. At the same time, we're memorializing the guys that didn't make it back home in a very unique way. As far as I know, this has never been done. Nobody's ever gone out with a team of all combat wounded guys, and then turned around, one of which, is a triple amputee, Ryan Davis. Ryan, awesome dude, nothing holds him back. He got blown up in Afghanistan in 2019, has, one arm, a left arm and half of his hips gone. And he was out there driving the boat, and then actually held the rod for me while I tagged the shark. So it's a pretty beautiful thing we have. And after the second tag, Ryan is going to name. Then the third tag that goes out, we're in talks now. We think we're going to name it after somebody that took their own life. Okay. It's a sad thing. It's a different thing than killed in action, right? Because they didn't die overseas. That's a different thing. And these guys will always be honored, and they hold a very special place in our heart. We also believe, though, our little group, myself, Ryan, Devin, Eric, just it's like there's not enough of we don't talk enough about the suicide, and people outside of the normal demographic, right? Your hardcore military supporters know all about 22 a day. They all know there's a problem. I don't know if the greater American public knows, and it's also not their fault. This is something that's just not widely talked about. I think it's touched on in certain demographics, but if we start attaching these to white sharks, one, it's a beautiful way to remember these apex predators. Even if they took their own life, they're still an apex predator. They still did amazing things for this country, and I do believe they deserve to be honored. And also, it will, if we can get this on every device, phone, tablet, TV in the nation, I think it's a beautiful and positive way to honor them while also bringing up a very sad subject that a lot of people like to avoid. So I think it's something that, if we can get on a Shark Week or something like that, mm-hmm. in every living room in America, I think we can really help starting to get that suicide number down.
Right. It's one of those things, it's kind of cliche to say, but it's getting that conversation going, because I know myself as, somebody who was never in the military, wanted to be but couldn't. It's almost like don't know exactly what to say, because it's like I didn't live it, so I don't know if I have the ability to speak about it. But us being friends over the past few years, it's bridging that gap, right? And it's getting out in the media, whether whoever it is that you talk to, it's like the more you get it in there, the more normalized it is that it's okay to talk about, and the more that it's talked about, I feel like then maybe the more resources come up for veterans, that then we get that 22 a day down to 21 a day, 20 a day. Eventually, obviously, it'd be great to get 0, but it's got to start somewhere. And if it's with, white shark fishing, go for it.
Yeah. And I mean, Andrew, you definitely feel free to speak on it, and that's what it's all about. You've really had a front row seat to a lot of my struggles and stuff, and you've been there for me through a lot. And you led the way on this, and then everybody here at WTOC has supported it. You guys have really helped big time getting our stories out there in the community. And it's a beautiful thing. It is bridging a gap. I think the veteran community, just like everything, everybody, there's stereotypes, and I think a lot of people think we're all a certain way, right? That we all, have our American flag ball cap and our t-shirt, and, we're open carry and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But what I don't think people realize, because of, the national view on things, what we see on TV, etc. I don't think people understand that it's like, because we hear all the time, we'll share our stories about what we've been through in combat, like what we call the fun stuff, and people look at it as like, you just don't seem like you would be into that kind of thing. We're like, oh yeah, I love it. So I think what it is the more we get these stories out there, the more we get guys that have really been in the stuff, so to speak, if we could really get them, sharing more, and it's almost it's humanizing them, right? Because like now people meet us and they're like, holy cow, I got cousin Johnny kind of reminds me of Jimmy, or my boyfriend from high school, man, he looks just like Ryan, kind of talks like him, it just, now everybody's making a relation, and then they're like, wait a minute, I know somebody that was having mental health, holy cow, like, maybe
I should call him, just
exactly
it's that easy. It's like a little domino effect, and I don't think it's as complicated as we think it is.
No,
it's a big problem though, but I think that there's got to be a solution out there.
It is, and then once again, it's a scary subject, and it's a tough thing, right? I mean, you're dealing with gunfighters. It's a very unique thing. Less than 5% of all deployed soldiers saw direct action combat, and I mean, I'm not sure which percentage Rangers are. I know it's a very small one, but you're talking hundreds and hundreds. Some guys 1,000+ missions. I mean, it's a lot.
Right. And that's whole part of your mission too, because obviously hearing from Jimmy the past almost 30 minutes, you could hear how knowledgeable you are of the local waters. And first you started that with American Fishing Charters, right? You were out there making money on folks that wanted to catch fish, and you're very good at that. But as of late, you've transitioned out of that more so to focusing more so on the nonprofit, right? So do you want to talk about the nonprofit? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's called Not Lucky, right? And it's a fun name.
Yeah, well, and it's actually kind of your fault that all happened, Andrew.
I'll take it.
Yeah, man. You had reached out to me about doing a story on charter captains. You were doing a whole thing on outdoor jobs.
One of your mates had sent me a video of something you guys had caught. And
okay, Chris.
Would you put this on the news? Because I do a fishing forecast, like showing what people catch and all that stuff, because I'll do marine forecasts a lot more in the spring, summer when it's warmer, and I'll try to show what people have, what they're catching, because I'm not always able to get out there very often. And then that's how the conversation started, and then you're like, hey, I really appreciate you showing that, putting our name out there. I know it's kind of taboo, but I think this would be an important story to be told if you're willing to listen. And there I was, I met you at the dock and didn't know what I was getting into. No,
and you ran that story, and after it ran, I think it ran on a Friday evening.
I don't remember. It ran and it took off.
Yes, it ran, and I went over because I didn't have it. I didn't even have a TV in my house at the time. Yeah, man, I've had a weird life. So I went over to my buddy's house and was watching it, and I was like, man, that was awesome. And they were getting ready to take their kids to a hair appointment, so we were all getting ready to part ways as soon as it was over. They were being supportive. We all high-fived. I just stood up off the couch, literally just stood up, and my phone rang, and it was a guy that was like, hey, I'm a veteran, so you'll take me fishing for free. And I'm like, well, this is like for for combat vets right now, blah blah blah. I don't really have resources, but sure, let's talk. I had a couple other calls that night. I went to bed and I woke up with 297 Facebook notifications, and I was like, oh Lord, I was like, what just happened? And that's how Not Lucky was born, and I got the name, because I had a guy reach out and was just like, you have a nonprofit. He wanted to give me money, and I was like, no. He's like, you need a nonprofit. I was like, I don't know what that is, dude. Like, I know what the name is. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with it. So I did. I started one, and, we needed a name, and it was, I actually had contemplated on changing the name recently. I don't know, self-doubt stuff. We all deal with stuff, right? Yeah. And then Ryan stepped up and was like, nah, you're not doing that. I said, okay. But yes, it's one of those things, like Not Lucky. It's like, I don't know how many times, we have heard, and it's not bad. This is not a stab at anybody for saying anything, because it wasn't malicious. But, you tell them about jumping out of airplanes in the Army, getting to shoot these guns, getting to do this training, getting to go to war and do these really cool things, chase the most evil guys in the world. And don't get me wrong, I loved it, and it's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it takes its toll, right? And then, my fishing business, not a lot of people know this, but, I was physically dependent on booze. People know that. Almost died in withdrawals. And then, a couple months, that first year of recovery is really hard. Actually, I relapsed my first year. So I think it was month 11 or something. But it was one of those things where it was, I was sitting in, when I first started running charters, I was sitting in bars every single night, handing out business cards, listening to people. Hey, like I'd be on Tybee, people be like, what does it do around here? I mean, man, I'd be on them. And it was a lot, you know. I'd still be shaking. I was a mess. But that's how it all started. And then people would say, hey, you know, you're so lucky you get to do this every day. You know, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm real lucky. Like literally, I was almost dead and did it. Am I lucky to be alive? Yes. Am I very blessed to be given, you know, the gifts that I've given and the people to surround me to help me that do? Of course, but it was just always kind of ironic, you know, hearing about how lucky we are all the time.
People don't realize the work that went into it.
Oh my gosh, no, they don't, and that's okay, you know. It's and maybe I probably worked harder than I should have. I'm not sure. It was I didn't really know what I was doing, so I had to go as hard as I possibly could because I've made a lot of mistakes. I still do make a lot of mistakes, but it's, you know, I learn from them and move on, and that's the thing. You can't. It's just like it is. It's just like combat. You know, you get ambushed. It's just Objective Berlin, perfect example, man. We lost a dude named Eric Hario and another dude named Jason. Dawkey that night. Jason Dawkey. Eric Hario was his first deployment. He ran off the back of first mission, first deployment, ran off the back of the helicopter and immediately got shot. 2 minutes or so later, you can watch this on YouTube. History Channel did a thing called Warfighters, and it's called Objective Berlin. So then about 2 minutes later, Dawkey got hit and died. And then our platoon went in directly after that. And you know, that's war. It's what you have to do, but it's a lot like life, right? And I think a lot of us, you know, especially today, you know, with social media and pressure of image and all this crazy stuff, you know, I think we get so focused on the negative and we let that stop us, right? You just heard me say self-doubt. I have self-doubt, but it does not stop me from going through that door. Right. You know, if that door is not opening, I want to blow it open, right? Yeah. I mean, that's just period. That's it. And if you make a mistake, you got to continue mission. You got to keep driving.
Right. And, you know, obviously with what you and your guys have gone through, fishing was that release for you too, right? You know, that's where you kind of could overcome some anxiety, especially whenever you were coming out of, you know, your alcohol withdrawals. Fishing was something that bridged that gap of something that was missing. So it's kind of, you know, a full circle moment of you're now using that to help other guys that have, you know, or are dealing with PTSD.
Yeah, and it's everybody, you know, in PTSD. I'm glad you said that because, you know, it's an interesting thing. It's something definitely we all have, and that's definitely something that is misunderstood. Miss Counselor lady Kelly Littlefield, who's been my counselor, I don't know, man, 6-7 years or something.
Keeping her in business.
Yeah, trying to. She keeps me sane. I try to keep her in business. So. But you know, we've said before, you know, there's different kinds of PTSD, right? And we think that ours needs renamed because, you know, you have, you know, the kid that went through a divorce, he's got PTSD. You know, people go overseas and, you know, a mortar goes off on base and it scares them, as it should. It's a scary thing, and they get PTSD. A lot of the guys and I've worked with those guys, and it's not that we will work with, you know, if you're a combat vet, we will help you. If you're a vet, and, you know, we will do our best to help you with what resources we have. But you're dealing with a group of guys who really started to fall apart when their fight was over. You know, we're junkies that can't get our fix, and our fix was war. You know, in units like Ranger Regiment, you're deploying for 3 to 5 months, and you're home for like 6-7, and then you deploy again. It's constant. Yeah. And when you're doing that all in your 20s, and when you find out it's over, what do you do after that? What's your purpose? What purpose bigger than you can do than serving your God and country? You know, taking the fight to the enemy. That's some pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, I'd say so. But you've transitioned well out of it. And I know that not everybody is able to transition back into civilian life, but this is an outlet for a few people, and hopefully the nonprofit and everything just keeps on growing and growing, and more people see it, because then you get to do cool things too, like the white shark tagging and things like that. So I really appreciate you know, what you've been doing, and it's been a fun ride to see it over the past 4 or 5 years,
yeah,
whatever it's been. So, and next up, you got a tag waiting to go into another shark that's out there eating right now.
Yes, sir. Hopefully we'll have one in next week.
All right, Jimmy, we'll keep you updated and keep following their story. If you want to, read up or watch some videos of Jimmy in the past, you can always get that on WTOC.com. And Jimmy, will have you on again after you get that next tag out.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, thanks for listening to this week's special edition of the First Alert Weather Podcast. We'll talk to y'all again here soon. That's fun.
Hells yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I have a hit at 9, so that's why